Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the thriller suspense films from 2008, titled Eden Lake. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens in England with a woman named Jenny, finishing her workday as a teacher at a primary school. Outside, her boyfriend, Steve, is seen waiting for her with a ring, which implies that he's planning to propose to her. Jenny joins Steve in his car, and it turns out the couple has planned a romantic getaway for the weekend at a flooded quarry. Steve reveals that it's the last chance to visit the place before the developers begin building over it. After several hours of driving, the couple arrives in a small town, and decides to spend the night at a motel. There, they notice that the locals seem unfriendly toward outsiders, and Jenny gets very disturbed when she notices a woman angrily slapping her kid for just playing. The next day, the couple arrives at a gated community called Eden Lake, which is situated in the middle of the woods. After driving further for a while, they finally reach a huge and beautiful lake, where they plan to spend the weekend having fun. When they get out of the car, they meet a boy named Adam, who is catching insects and drawing them. Jenny tries to talk to him, but Adam says his mom told him not to talk to strangers. The couple thus leaves him alone and heads to the shore, where they spend the afternoon sunbathing. Suddenly, a group of troublesome teenagers arrives, and begins to bully Adam, while crushing the insect he collected. This unsettles Jenny, but Steve says it's just boys being boys, and suggests they shouldn't intervene. The couple then proceeds to take a nap, but Jenny soon wakes up to the sound of a dog barking at her. The animal is soon pulled away by the bullies, who are sitting nearby and blasting loud music. Shortly after, Steve goes to swim in the lake, while Jenny is once again approached by the dog, who begins barking at her, and spitting saliva. This annoys Steve, so he approaches the kids, and asks them to lower the music and keep their dog under control. The group includes Brett, Cooper, Harry, Ricky, Paige, and Mark. The dog turns out to be Brett's pet, Bonnie, and the bullies only make fun of Steve and refuse to listen to him. Paige even accuses him of being a creep and watching her body, so Steve feels humiliated and walks away. Upon seeing this, Jenny suggests they can go somewhere else, but Steve tells her he's not going to get scared by a bunch of 12-year-olds. This annoys Jenny, and now she has no choice but to tolerate the jerks who begin ogling her body with binoculars. Sometime later, the troublesome teenagers finally proceed to leave, but not before Brett proudly flashes his genitals at Jenny. That night, the couple camps by the lake when they hear eerie noises from the woods, but decide to ignore them. The next morning, they wake up to discover that their food is crawling with insects, so they decide to go to the town to have breakfast. However, they learn that their car tire has been punctured by shards of a beer bottle the teenagers left behind. But this doesn't deter Steve, so he angrily changes the tire and soon drives away from the woods. Sometime later, the couple arrives at a diner, where Steve speaks to the waitress about the troublesome kids, and asks if she knows their parents so he can talk to them. But the waitress responds very rudely, and repeatedly says, "Not my kids." After leaving the diner, Steve notices one of the bullies' bicycles in front of a house, so he decides to go there to confront the parents. He enters the house and calls for someone, but no one responds, and the place is completely empty. Not long after, the owner of the house, John, arrives, so Steve gets scared and quickly hides upstairs. But he accidentally makes a noise, so John thinks it's his son, Brett, and angrily summons him. This panics Steve, so he climbs out the window, and slides down the tiled roof, before getting back to his car without anyone noticing. Afterwards, the couple spends a pleasant day at the lake, so at one point, Steve decides that he will propose to Jenny and reaches for the ring. But just then, Jenny notices that their beach bag is missing, which contained their car keys. The couple now hurries to find their vehicle, but it turns out to have already been stolen by the teenagers, which infuriates them. Later, while searching for their car, the couple is almost run over by their own vehicle, which is now being driven by Brett. The teenagers hurl curses at them before driving off in the opposite direction. As darkness falls, the exhausted couple is seen still walking, when they come across the teenagers again, who are kicking a cage containing a trapped animal. Steve then approaches them and demands his car keys, as well as his phone and wallet. Brett argues he didn't take anything, but Steve points out that the teenager is wearing his sunglasses. All of a sudden, Steve's phone begins ringing in Brett's pocket, so the man hurriedly tries to take it back. But Ricky now pulls out a knife, which leads to a fight that causes Bonnie to get more aggressive, and Steve accidentally wounds Bonnie with the knife. Brett immediately approaches his pet and tries to stop the bleeding. Steve offers to take the dog to the vet, but Brett throws him the keys and angrily tells them to get the hell out of there. But when the couple tries to escape, Bonnie ends up dying, so a distraught Brett orders his friends to go after them. Meanwhile, the couple tries to get out of the woods, but the vehicle soon ends up stuck on a slope. At this moment, the teenagers arrive, and hurl rocks from the hillside, before smashing the car's headlights. A desperate Steve somehow manages to get the vehicle running, but since it's completely dark, the car crashes into a tree. The branches burst through the windshield and impale Steve against the seat, leaving him bleeding and screaming in agony. Desperate, he asks Jenny to go to the town and seek help. Jenny obliges and leaves with a heavy heart, but soon hears the teenagers approaching, which prompts her to hide behind the bushes. The gang doesn't notice her, but soon approaches a defenseless Steve, where Brett plans to make him pay for his dog's death. The next morning, Jenny leaves her hiding place, and it turns out that instead of going into town to seek help, she spent the night there. She then returns to the car, but Steve is nowhere to be seen. And so, Jenny follows a trail of blood, and soon notices a brutally wounded Steve, tied with barbed wire to a wooden post by the teenagers. Brett then states that they will use him as bait to trap Jenny, and subject her to unspeakable horrors. Upon seeing this, a worried Harry urges Brett to let Steve go, but the latter refuses since he knows the man will get them arrested. But Harry insists he hasn't even touched him, so Brett threatens him with a knife and demands that he torture Steve. He even orders Paige to record everything, so there is proof that everyone participated. Up next, Brett makes all his friends stab Steve one by one, while Jenny watches helplessly from a distance and cries. Moments later, Jenny notices she doesn't have a signal, so she uses her phone's Bluetooth to connect to Steve's phone, and tries to call 999. But unfortunately, Brett gets an alert on Steve's phone, so he disconnects the call and realizes that Jenny is nearby. Steve thus yells at her to run, so Jenny begins running away, while the teenagers start chasing her on their bicycles. This gives Steve enough time to disentangle himself from the wire, while Jenny manages to evade the teens by making their bicycles crash into a log. After losing her pursuers, Jenny stumbles upon a trailer, inside which she sees a walkie-talkie lying on a table. But the door is locked, so she grabs a tool and tries to reach the device, but the walkie-talkie falls and breaks. The teenagers are approaching, while Jenny's jacket gets tangled in the chain holding the trailer door. She thus abandons her jacket and hides behind the trailer, right when the teenagers show up. They break down the door to look for Jenny inside, but unbeknownst to them, she is hiding on the roof of the trailer. Elsewhere, Ricky notices that Steve has escaped, so he immediately informs Brett, after which the group begins searching for the injured man. Meanwhile, Steve manages to get to his vehicle, but as he opens the trunk, it blares a loud alarm, which alerts the teenagers. So Steve quickly takes out some essential items that can help him and leaves before they can catch up. Shortly after, the couple is finally reunited, but Steve can't even walk properly, so Jenny brings him inside a small wooden cabin. There, she begins tending to his wounds, during which she discovers the ring in his pocket that he had been planning to give her. This leaves her completely stunned, while Steve tells her that he wanted to go to Africa for their honeymoon, and that he had even asked her father for permission to marry her. At this moment, the teenagers are seen approaching, so the couple has no choice but to flee again. Soon, the group enters the cabin, but only finds the bloody prints, while we see that Jenny and Steve are crouching in the water directly below the cabin. After the teenagers finally leave, Jenny takes her boyfriend out of the water, but by this time, he has already lost consciousness. She wakes him up, and realizes he's going to die soon if he doesn't get treated. So Jenny decides to go to town to seek help, and hides Steve among some bushes. Before leaving, she puts on the engagement ring, and shows him that she has accepted his proposal. Following this, Jenny follows the power lines and runs towards the town, but accidentally steps on a spike, which pierces her foot and knocks her to the ground. She begins crying in pain, which is also heard by the teenagers, prompting them to rush toward her. The poor woman thus hides in a grove, where she clenches a stick between her teeth to suppress her screams, while she painfully pulls the spike from her wound. Afterwards, Jenny continues to advance as best she can, and soon comes across Adam, whom we saw at the beginning of the movie. She begs him to take her to his mom, but the boy only says she is at work. The desperate woman then asks him to lead her to the town, to which Adam agrees. However, instead of following the power lines, he leads her even deeper into the forest, after which he uses his phone to communicate with someone. Jenny asks him to call the police, but the boy tells her that he has no signal, and that he's only playing a game. However, Jenny doesn't believe him and tries to take his phone, right when the troublesome teens arrive, revealing that it was them whom Adam had texted. Sometime later, Jenny wakes up, and finds herself tied to a tree trunk, along with Steve, who has passed away. The teenagers pour gasoline around the couple to burn them, but Harry argues they can't do this, as the woman is still alive. But Brett doesn't care, so he once again asks Paige to film everything, and gives matches to Adam to set the couple on fire. Adam hesitates at first, but when Brett begins threatening to hurt him, he finally strikes the match and throws it onto the tree, which begins engulfing Steve's body. Meanwhile, Jenny begins begging for mercy, but soon the flames burn through the ropes tying her to the tree, which causes her to break free. Brett lunges toward her, but Jenny knocks over a can of kerosene and throws a burning branch into it, creating a wall of fire between them. She then flees, so Brett grabs Adam and threatens to burn him if she doesn't return. But Jenny ignores him, and soon helplessly watches from a distance, as Brett drenches poor Adam in kerosene and sets him ablaze. Jenny is so horrified at the sight that she begins vomiting. Even Brett's friends recoil in terror, but they don't have the courage to confront the sadistic boy. Sometime later, Jenny stumbles upon a large guide map, so she smashes the glass securing it, and examines the route just as the teenagers are heard approaching. She then hides inside a dumpster, while Ricky approaches and tells Brett that Jenny has stolen the map and now knows where to go. But the psycho kid coldly tells him that she won't get far on foot. After the boys leave, Jenny climbs out of the dumpster, when Cooper notices her from a distance. He approaches her with the intention of helping, but she suddenly plunges a shard of glass deep into his neck. The boy collapses to the ground, while a horrified Jenny realizes the gravity of what she has done. She desperately tries to help him, but Cooper convulses violently one last time before dying in her arms. Sometime later, it's already dark, but the teenagers are still searching for Jenny. Brett soon hears Paige screaming, so he rushes over and learns that Harry and Paige have discovered Cooper's lifeless body. Harry now blames Brett for the death, and says he's had enough and wants to go home. But the psychopath coldly tells him he can't leave and shows him the videos of Harry torturing Steve. A regretful Harry now tries to call someone, so Brett loses his mind and slams his friend to the ground and delivers brutal punches to Harry's face, and kicks him repeatedly until the boy is seemingly dead. Upon seeing this, Paige is so horrified that she quickly runs away from there to escape her sadistic friend. Meanwhile, Jenny reaches the main road, where she collapses to the ground in front of a van. The driver, Reese, is shocked by her terrible state, while she begs for help, saying they have killed her boyfriend. However, instead of heading into town, the man drives into the woods, and reveals that his little brother, Ricky, is out there, and he's worried. Jenny is horrified to realize he is the brother of her boyfriend's murderer, and pleads with him to turn around. But the boy refuses and soon arrives at the gate, where he exits the vehicle, and meets with Ricky and Mark. While the boys are distracted, Jenny takes advantage of the moment and drives away from there. The mad woman soon spots Paige running out onto the road, so she does this. After driving for a while, Jenny arrives in town, and suddenly collides with another car, causing her van to crash into a fence. The exhausted woman exits the vehicle, and finds herself in a backyard where people are having a party. She screams for help and collapses unconscious on the lawn, after which the people rush to help her. Sometime later, Jenny wakes up to find herself lying on a bed, and a woman is tending to her wounds. Soon, another woman gets a call from someone, and when Jenny looks around, she notices pictures of Brett, and realizes this is his house. She begs to call an ambulance, but John arrives and tells her to stay quiet. Jenny then asks to be escorted to the restroom, where she quickly locks herself in. She frantically tries to find a way out, but the bathroom windows are too small and thick, making her escape impossible. Outside, people can be heard screaming, and it seems they have learned about what happened in the woods and even recognized Reese's van. With no other option, Jenny arms herself with a razor, just as John begins frantically demanding that she open the door. He eventually kicks it down, after which Paige's mother rushes to attack Jenny, but the men separate them. It turns out all these people are the parents of the troublesome kids, and Brett is also here now, accusing Jenny of killing his friends. Poor Jenny frantically tries to explain how they killed her boyfriend, but they don't believe her. Feeling utterly hopeless and trapped, Jenny tries to attack John, but he restrains her. A man asks John to stop, warning that further violence could put them in trouble once the police arrive. But John declares that the police won't find out about this, and in this town, they protect each other. He orders Brett to go to bed, and when the boy refuses, John gives him a brutal slap. Next, John and a few other men drag Jenny toward the bathroom to finish her, while Brett retreats to his room and slams the door to block out Jenny's desperate screams. The movie ends with him deleting all the videos from Paige's cell phone, and wearing Steve's sunglasses, before staring at the mirror with a sinister look on his face. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.